Okay, next up we have what has proven to be one of our most contentious categories in years past here on Game of the Year, and it's Best Music, Score or Soundtrack. Previous winners, 2015, Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. 2016 was a split award between Mafia III for soundtrack and Doom for the score. 2017 was Super Mario Odyssey. 2018 was Celeste. And 2019, Sayonara Wild Hearts. Our nominees this year are Ori and the Will o' the Wisp by Gareth Coker, Paradise Killer, Barry Epoch Topping and Fiona Lynch, Hades, Darren Korb and Ashley Barnett, Spiritfairer, Max LL, Ghostrunner, Daniel Deluxe, Doom Eternal, Mick Gordon, The Last of Us Part 2, Gustavo Santolalla, Astro's Playroom, Kenneth CM Young, Bugsnax, Seth Parker, and Paper Mario, The Origami King, by a lot of people whose names I will butcher if I try, so we're just going to breeze on past that. I will now consult the Wheel of Fate to see who will be going first for this all-important category. Sharp intake of breath in the room, lads, please. Dun 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 dun. Bollocks, it's me.
Not a great category to go first on.
I've not won this once yet. The fix is in, I'm telling you.
You haven't been nominated once. Mark Robinson for humming as we set up Audacity.
First elimination.
Okay, so, as in most years we've done this is a very, very tough category. And it's tough to go first, but the way I look at it is it's even tougher to go second, third, and fourth. So in some ways I'm getting away with it. It's a category full of passion projects here, and I don't think there's a way to attack this without attacking someone else. So maybe I'll go for one of the ones I nominated. I can't remember if anyone else did. I'm going to go for Doom Eternal. Because it's... I know.
Wow.
Because
I'm actually shocked that you've done this.
Yeah, you see, it's good, and I love that Mick Gordon soundtrack, but when I think about it, it's kind of like not a million miles off the soundtrack you did 4 years ago for a much better game.
Yeah.
I don't remember a thing about it, to be honest.
Yeah, okay. Like it doesn't have any of the kind of like really memorable like was it Rip and Tear was the really
it's Rip and Tear, like, the big one.
Yeah, from the first one. So like as good as it is, you know, like if it was just a kind of released as a metal album, I quite enjoy it. But given the context and that we know him and Doom are both capable of much better, that's what I'm going for unless somebody wants to fight me.
I won't fight you. I will say that of the memorable songs on here, BFG 10K absolutely rips. So like,
I would have definitely called a song that 10 years ago.
BFG 10K. Yeah. You know, it's kind of that shifty sort of unsettling percussive electronica and Foley, like twisted, echoey, into like metal that shreds and occasionally goes a bit doomy and sort of like overproduced, like a Death Haven thing. There's some cool like pulsating beats. There's moments that are even like Prodigy-esque, I would say, but as you say, it is kind of a melange. It's a good soundtrack, but it doesn't have the killer track. BFG 10K is probably my killer track, but yeah, it hasn't got a rip and tear on it, so I think it's fair to cut it from here.
I'm glad Doom got like one nice nomination out of this award, because if there is one solitary thing about that game that deserves a positive nod, I think it is the soundtrack. I think it is, while not quite 2016, it's another damn good Doom soundtrack. So yeah, it's sad to see it go so early, but I wasn't going to win, I don't think, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think it harkens back when we were talking about it most disappointing, and like 4 years ago when Doom 2016 came out, it was nominated in most categories, you know, and like you said, Barry, it's good that it got in one because it's Doom, and it's definitely a good soundtrack, you know. I don't think we're going to take anything away from the soundtrack as a whole, but yeah, just sad that it didn't pan out better, considering where expectations were. Mark, you're next up to bat.
I'm not sure how much this is going to annoy some people, but I did go and I went and listened to everything that I didn't get a chance to play, and I liked, it for what it was. I don't know if there's some stuff that is kind of more contextual to actually playing the game that makes the soundtrack more for what it is, but Astro's Playroom was okay. I didn't...
Astro's Playroom's better than okay.
Yeah, I don't know if it wins, but it would pain me to see it go so early.
When you were going to say that, I thought you were going to head towards another game that I thought had a painfully okay soundtrack.
I'm a professional here, right? I'm keeping on your toes until the words actually come out. That's how we do this.
Yeah. I think this is kind of the weird thing about video game music, is that kind of... There's always that weird thing of, I would listen to this away from the thing. For me, Astro, it's kind of like the music is a wonderful part of the glee of that game. Do you know what I mean? But it is only within the context of that game, if that makes sense. So like, I love the GPU jungle song, where it is literally a GPU singing about how it is your GPU, and stuff like that. And I think it's a very good song, but I also think it's a very key ingredient in that sense of just happiness in that game. I'd be pained to see it go. But again, I think with a lot of these categories, you just have to be really harsh and say, look, is it going to win? And I suppose the answer is probably not. Probably not.
So I think you hit on a point, Barry, that is something I wanted to say, which is that this is a traditional video game soundtrack in the way that this is sort of a testament and a sort of nice memorial of all of the PlayStation things that come through, and it hits you like a wave of nostalgia with all of the artifacts that are encased. And this soundtrack sounds like a brilliant representation of like what old school video game soundtracks used to be, and the sort of glitchy, uplifting electronica vibes that are in there, like the melody in the PlayStation Labo, and when you're using the gacha machine and stuff like that will get stuck in my head, like, and I'll be humming that as I carry on around the game. I think it's fucking awesome. Like, I love the way that each of the 4 stages the song changes. It's the same basic song, but it just subtly changes as you add more layers into it, and the tasks that you're doing are different, and that's really awesome. And to me, the SSD Speedway music is my favorite, because I remember having huge expectations for like the Daft Punk Tron soundtrack, and it was really, really good. But this to me sounds like it could easily hang with that Daft Punk Tron soundtrack, and it's got that sort of electronic, just like driving synthesizer, but at the same time with that all of the major key that Daft Punk music seems to exist in, and I think that SSD section in particular is my favorite, along with the Labo. But yeah, does it win? No, I guess it probably doesn't, so then I guess we probably can let it go, but I think it's better than being eliminated at this juncture. There's a couple of things on here left that I'm like, I gotta say, Astro's probably on the edges of my top 5, but maybe not quite getting in. So yeah, to see it in a 9th place here, even though we don't order this, is painful, but fair enough.
Okay. Barry, you're up next.
I might surprise you a bit here, but this is a game that I nominated that I kind of went back and forth on nominating quite a bit. I was actually a little bit disappointed in it. The more I listened to it and the more I played this game, I was like, no, it is very good. It's just not of the lofty standards I was expecting. I would probably take Last of Us off. Gustavo Santolalla, he's a very distinct sound, and I mean, he is probably the unsung hero of Last of Us 1. The music of that game, as sparse as it is incredible. I would argue one of the greatest soundtracks ever of a video game. He gets the tone and the heart of that game so right, and he kind of comes back here and he does similar, but it's not even really an insult, even though it kind of sounds like it. The music is doing less heavy lifting in this game than it was in the first one. Now it feels like everything else is elevated. The performances are better, the visual presentation is better, the writing is infinitely better, and I was actually somewhat let down by the music. To the point I actually wasn't even considering nominating it, but I do think it's very good. It just doesn't have those memorable tracks like, I mean, they have that one song in the first game they repeat where it's, you know, when Sarah dies, and then a different arrangement of the same song plays in the final scene in the hospital. There's the somber music from the giraffe scene. Those are memorable, you know, and this game just has a lot of solid Last of Us music in it, but it's not great, you know.
I actually find that what I find more memorable are the Ellie cover versions of songs than the actual original soundtrack.
Yes, yeah.
Like I can't think how into her version of True Faith from the launch advertisement I was at the time, and I was like, I want the full single of that, please. Whereas, you know, I wouldn't have said that about the original score. Like, the original score, as you said, was very memorable and had a lot of high points. Whereas this was good, it was moody, it worked with the game, but it wasn't as outstanding as the last time round either.
Yeah, and I think look, that stuff can absolutely carry a nomination. I think the cover versions, the Days of Future Past, all the cover versions that you can find optionally, like the Take On Me is a phenomenal scene. Also the limited, but it's still in there. The actual licensed songs they use in places are very good. The Ecstasy, the track from the that was in the E3 demo or whatever it was, the dance scene where Ellie and Dina kiss. I mean, that's a wonderful song. So it has lots of cool different musical things in it, but not the full suite of bangers that some of these other contenders have. So a good package, but I don't think it wins here.
I love the Spanish guitar vibes, like the sort of sparsely dusted over the top. Like, it kind of had that almost like sub Ennio Morricone spaghetti western-esque vibe at times, which I thought was pretty cool. And, you know, some lovely like sparse uses of orchestral music. But the thing that underpins to me why I probably wouldn't have it is because, like you say, Barry, the game itself is very intense. Therefore, the soundtrack is more of an underpinning to the game, and it's a support rather than something to elevate. So where you've got things like a little bit more intense, a little more relaxed, and a little bit more sparsely decorated, then that kind of reflects the quality of everything else going on around it. So I think it's totally by design. I think Gustavo Santaolalla's smashed it in terms of supporting his game, but maybe particularly not as memorable as the first one, and doesn't have as many high points from what I listened to.
Jack, you're next.
This is probably going to hurt some people, I think. I'm not entirely sure who it was that put it on. But I guess there's no way not to hurt anyone at this point, because we're getting to some seriously great. But of the soundtracks that I listened to and went and watched within context and stuff, but of games that I didn't play, I gotta think that I think the worst and weakest one on the list, I want to say worst because it's good, but it maybe wasn't my cup of tea of the stuff that I heard from it, and that's Bugsnax.
Oh yeah, I nominated. No one else here has really sunk much time into Bugsnax, have they?
I haven't got around to it.
No. Yeah, I think there's Bugsnax, and there's one other game on here that I won't spoil now, where I feel like it's maybe if we were doing a cohesive style award, I think the music plays a cool part in that. I don't think it's the best looking game or the best sounding game, but I think it has a great cohesive style. I think some of the tracks are very catchy. The music really encapsulates that kind of kid-friendly but ever so slightly off and weird vibe that the whole game has. And it's very...
That's amazing, that Barry, because my 2 bullet points say off-kilter synthesizer and whimsical beats.
Yeah.
So kid-friendly and slightly off. Like, you've nailed it. Absolutely perfect.
Yeah, it's a really cool, kooky, like the main menu theme, which I don't think that's even on YouTube anywhere. I couldn't even find it. It's a real toe tapper. I think they nail what they're going for. But yeah, I think the music in that game is a very important piece of a bigger puzzle, and I don't know if it stands out on its own. So that sucks, but I can see it going.
Yeah. And it definitely deserves some bonus points for coming out on a limited edition strawberry vinyl.
Yeah,
it's pretty good. Pretty good.
Best Presentation of a Soundtrack Award 2020 goes to.
Well, now, hang on. I'm still waiting on my limited edition Last of Us 2 vinyl to be delivered.
After you just eliminated it.
I know, yeah, but it has some gorgeous hand-drawn art on the front of it, which is the only reason I'm getting it.
Yeah, don't worry, Jack. Barry has long since put Druckmann's kids through college. Yeah. That is for sure. Following around like the hot dog vendor in The Simpsons. Right, it's background to me, and there's two soundtracks I'm looking at here that do a similar thing very well. So I'm going to pick the one I didn't jive with as much, and it's because I played it less. I may get jumped on, but let's see what happens when I say the word Spiritfairer.
That was the other one I was referencing with Bugsnax, where I think Spiritfairer is a good-looking game. It's not the best-looking game. I think the soundtrack is lovely. It's not the best. I think that game has a great cohesive style for what it's going for. I don't know if I would fight you for the best music on that, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I don't think it's finishing number one, and I think of the two dreamy, whimsical soundtracks left here, it's my least favourite.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I'm fully in agreement, because I'm relatively confident the other one that you refer to. No, I don't think that it even holds a candle to the other one. But it is still a lovely soundtrack.
Yeah.
And, that game in general is very lovely and pleasant to be a part of.
And whimsical.
I thought this soundtrack was incredible, by the way. I listened to pretty much the whole album, the whole shebang, and just had it on in the background when I was doing some work a week or two ago. Just didn't play the game, and I was blown away by this. I thought that maybe this would do better, and I think having not heard it maybe in context of the game, maybe that takes away from it a little bit. But I thought it was that delicate orchestral sound to it was beautifully done. Like in places, I actually thought it was reminiscent of early PlayStation Uematsu work, and that's a high compliment. And the song from the ending credits, "What You Will Leave Behind," for a game about accepting sort of people moving on into into spirits, moving on into the next realm or whatever. I think that song really nails the journey of the game so perfectly, and I just thought it. I don't know why I thought this would be not having not played the game and stuff. I thought this would be closer to the top for some of you guys. But
again, in fairness, it's a very strong category this year.
It is. Yeah. It's great, but I really want to shout out and then What You Will Leave Behind is. It's almost like I could pick up this song and I could put it as the last track on a mixed playlist or a mixed CD or something if I was living 20 years ago, and it would just resonate so well. It'd be the perfect song to be on a playlist that you finish listening to just as you get home at night from a night out or something. It's so great.
Okay.
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll hook you up with Big Spence, get you that Series S out to you so you can play some Spiritfairer.
Thanks, Uncle Phil.
Never.
Although actually it is on Switch as well. So
sorry, I've just been handed this card that says Elder Scrolls Skyrim now available on Xbox Game Pass. Check it out, guys. Excellent. I'll just put that down there beside the big bag of cash. Next up, Mark.
So I had 4 soundtracks that I was hoping to see come the end of this, and they are there without me actually having to put up a fight for any of them, which is nice.
Yeah.
So I can
it's probably the most Mark Robinson year when it comes down to the final 5 here.
So I can make this easy for myself because I'm pretty sure I'd be the only one that nominated it. Ghostrunner can come off now. I think there are 3 soundtracks this year that did the retro synthwave thing. There was Art of Rally, which still kind of throws me off that game that looks like that has that soundtrack and yet it works. And then there were parts of Streets of Rage 4 that did it, and where it did do it, mainly the last fight with the Y twins, I think. That song in particular is excellent, but I'm so disappointed with Streets of Rage 4, and I'm kind of surprised that it wasn't actually in the most disappointing category, because one of the things that you hold up when it comes to Streets of Rage is the soundtrack, and it's so patchy, where like when it's good, it's really good, but then there are so many parts of it that are just either just weak retreads of stuff from prior games, and it's even more disappointing because that last song is really good. Ghostrunner, I guess, is probably I don't know if it's the most consistent of the three, because Art of Rally actually just is banger after banger, but I think kind of contextually within the game, and it does that thing like Doom where it kind of picks and it knows when to amp up the energy and the dynamics in comparison to the gameplay at those moments in time. It does a really good job of that. But there's no kind of real standout track. I think that's the main thing, because like the four soundtracks we have left, I have clear, distinctive like songs that I have been listening to outside of the game. And Ghostrunner just doesn't have that. But like within the game, it works really well. And I'm kind of surprised that it made it here past some other stuff, but I'm not going to complain too much. And now I feel the headaches are really going to begin.
I will say that on Ghostrunner, I thought there is a standout track from I listened to the soundtrack, and it was Infiltrator. That thing absolutely slaps. It just has that, sort of like gallopy synth and just on beat, and it's just very satisfying to sort of bop your head along to. Because it's a synthwave soundtrack, I think you come into it expecting certain things, but I think it does a lot more interesting stuff. Like, it borrows a lot from the sort of early 90s trance and house synth sound. Like, it's not going for that sort of, when you think synthwave, you think Driver, right? You think that sort of that's that Infiltrator song. It has that pulsing feel to it. But this does some dirty, like nasty, grindy synth stuff at times, and some really like euphoric stuff that will pop up as well. So I think it's a much more varied take on what you can do with synthesizers, and I think musically borrowing a lot of classic dance sounds. So I thought this was really cool. And yeah, I guess there's maybe one or two that have already fallen that would have edged it over, but it definitely hangs in this category for me.
Okay, Barry.
I didn't care, especially for the Paper Mario soundtrack, to be honest.
There he is.
Yeah,
there he is.
It's the I would agree with you on that. Just like, I'm not saying I didn't care for it, but like I'm looking at what's left here, and it's the one that, charming as it is, it didn't grab me in an especially holy shit, this is better than anything else I've heard this year sort of way.
Especially like by the standards of a Mario game. Like I kind of do expect to be wowed. Do you know what I mean? Which I don't like.
The bar has been raised by Jump Up Superstar so high.
Yeah.
I think the thing with the Origami King soundtrack is, for a start, there's like a fucking ton of songs on there. Like, if you go on
7
YouTube,
hours.
It's insane how many tracks are on there, and a fair amount of it is actually very good. There's not a lot that is throwaway. And the other thing is, it's incredibly varied. Like, it spans a whole bunch of genres, from like the battle music that has this kind of real kind of heavy kind of crunching guitar in the background, while this weird fucking bunch of kind of synth noises plays over the top. But it's got that energy to it. And then you've got, as we mentioned in the Best Moments category, the song that plays after the death of Bobby is this incredibly powerful, moving moment that is something that's straight out of a Final Fantasy game. And there are elements of the soundtrack that sound like something out of a Splatoon game. It does a whole bunch of different things. And I can see with what's left, probably I would say it would be the next one to go, but I think the Paper Mario soundtrack is, by and large, like very, very enjoyable and really excellent, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna put it over. I thought it was class. I know you guys said that you didn't think it was maybe as strong as other Nintendo soundtracks, but I thought it was right up there. There's something that Nintendo do. There's like two things that they do in, it seems like, most of their soundtracks. It's a really amazing like synth bass sound they use. It has that sort of slap bass quality to it, and there was a lot of that going on in some of the music, which I love. They use
one of the leading exponents of the slap bass movement.
Exactly, yeah. You should see the size of my thumb. And yeah, they use jazz elements in their soundtracks in a way that that actually brings joy. I find jazz sometimes very kind of difficult to listen to. I think it's something that you either
it's not just you, Jack. It's not just you.
Yeah, but I'm also not burying it, because I think some of the musicians that are involved in jazz are up there with the greatest musicians ever, you see. But it's a lot more challenging to listen to. It's not something you can just throw on and get in a bath and chill out or something. Sweet Paper Valley is my favorite music from this, and I think it kind of carries the elements of the game, which is that everything in this game is bright and kinetic in its movement and feeling, and this soundtrack is that. And I think because there is just so much of it, it's incredibly overwhelming to go through it and pick moments out and stuff. But like you say, that you've already put over the song after Bobby, and yeah, for me, Sweet Paper Valley are the two that stick in my mind. But I just think that almost based on how good Nintendo have always been at the soundtrack thing, that almost kind of you hear a Nintendo soundtrack and you're yeah, it's a Nintendo soundtrack, and that's pretty much what we've got here. If we didn't have years and years of Nintendo soundtracks being of this standard, this would probably be in a maybe even a slightly higher contention, but because it's just a very good Nintendo soundtrack, that almost counts against it. I Sing What's Raining, I think there's only other one game I would probably edge to go now over this one, and I don't really think it's worth having that argument, because I don't think this wins from the ones that are remaining. So yeah, I mean, fucking great game, fucking great soundtrack.
Grand. So next it's Jack.
Oh my god. Oh dear. So
tread carefully, for you tread on our dreams.
I know that the two out of these three remaining are mind-blowingly good to me, in terms of the way that they work with their game. And then there's one that I think is very good, but isn't as good as the other two. And the one that I think that isn't as good is Hades. I'm afraid.
Yeah, it would be. It's very good, but it's my third of three as well.
Oh my god, Hades. Honestly, and I've eliminated it, and now I'm gonna put it over. It makes such interesting use of string instruments. You can hear the sort of traditional kind of balalaicas, and regional guitars, and all of these weird cool string things that it does. At times it even reminded me of the softer moments on System of a Down records, where they've got that sort of Armenian folk sound to them almost, which I just think is such an interesting thing for a sort of God's style game that's to be using this stuff, almost rootsy. There's so many interesting percussive rhythms and just really scratchy sort of jumpy things going on in the soundtrack, and it has sparse use of orchestral movements and stuff in here as well, which I think are really, really great. But I just think the other two games that are left are better, and this is an 8.5, 9 out of 10 soundtrack for me.
So I want to read the room first, because I mean, for me, I have spent a long time going back and forth on more two of these games, but really all three of them in the grand scheme of things. I do think Hades is my soundtrack of the year, and before we get onto the nitty gritty, there's a couple of standout tracks. One of the main things to talk about is the fact that Hades does a thing where it has a motif. It has this kind of core principle melody, and it brings it back at different points during the game with different songs, but it kind of mutates it and does different things with it. And Darren Korb does some incredible things with this kind of core idea, which is a great kind of introduction piece on its own. But you get it where there's a couple of tracks. So you've got the introduction, you've got the kind of God of the Dead, which is the big climactic fight with Hades, and that track is split into two parts, where you've got the first part where it's this kind of sludgy alt metal Mastodon type of kind of sound to it, and I love Mastodon, and the first time I heard it I was there's no way that that influence didn't come into it, because it's like it's a one-to-one comparison with some of their stuff.
Don't you think that, like, Mastodon, you talk about Mastodon, and I mentioned System of a Down, and I don't know if you agreed with that.
Yeah,
vibe,
no, I do. I absolutely do, yeah.
But they're two of the most interesting metal bands out there. Like, if you were to just label those two as metal, it doesn't really do them a lot of justice.
No, of course not.
And like, to say just like these sounds and stuff here that they've got a folksy on that, it doesn't do the soundtrack justice. Like,
yeah,
but it's spot on.
Yeah, and like, so that track is split into two, because the Hades fight is split into two bits, and you have the first part, which is this kind of big, you know, you've had the build up to this confrontation with Hades, and so like then the second part starts and the fight is more frantic, and you just have this kind of riff that just kind of slaps to begin with, and it's like, all right, shit's on. And it's you know, it's still got that sludgy alt rock metal sound to it, but it's just faster and more frantic, and it's, oh my god, it's incredible. And then there's the last track that I don't know if you guys listen to, but I linked to, called In the Blood. And this song plays basically when you have the final kind of true ending of the game, which is Hades and his mother. His mother basically decides to come back with him, with Zagreus. And Death, he basically, on the riverboat, takes you down the river, going back all through all of the areas that you've been, with the credits playing and this song playing in the background, which is this like grand epic track that takes the motif but then, you know, adds horns and strings and this incredible melody and this beautiful voice from Ashley Barrett and the falsetto in the background with Darren Korb. And like, I was really enjoying the soundtrack, but that particular song at the end, because I ended up with like 2 songs of the year, one from Paradise Killer that I'm sure we'll talk about, and then that song as well. And that's where my conflict was for the rest of the year, because I couldn't pick between the two of them, because there's just incredible songs in different ways. So there is part of me that wants to do a pushback, but I feel like it potentially is a 3-on-1. And so, you know, I want to read the room from, I think, you know, Jack, you made it, and I think Dave there. I don't know, Barry, if you have any kind of thoughts at all. If it's 3-on-1, then, you know, that's it. I can't do any more. But I definitely, for me, it is my soundtrack, and it might just be that it's more accustomed to my taste. I don't know, but yeah, it is an incredible soundtrack.
It is fantastic. I think you've given a great case for it there. It is just a case of, I think those two that are left are stronger in the mode. And ironically enough, I think I played both of the other two that are left on your recommendation.
You fucked yourself.
So this is how the turntables. But yeah, no. Look, Hades, like every individual element of Hades is like fantastic, and the music is way up there. I love the sound of Supergiant games. They do kind of have a through line of a familiar sound, and Hades is familiar but also expanded upon, and the best of all their soundtracks they've done so far. I would prefer the other two that are left, so I can't.
I mean, honestly, considering what's left, like, you know, I can't be that upset in the grand scheme of things.
This is like a tough goddamn year in this category.
For the benefit of the listeners, we would be down to Ori 2 and Paradise Killer versus Hades.
So sad to see Hades go, but yeah, on another year I think that's a slam dunk, but such as it is. Right, yeah, so we've got Ori and the Will of the Wisp and Paradise Killer, as Barry said.
Oh my god.
So before we go to the vote,
shall we have a chat about them first?
Yeah, will we go Ori first because it's top of the list here?
Sure. Yeah, sounds good.
So the way I've been trying, like I've been trying to sum this track up, or this soundtrack up, and the best way I can think about it is it's the soundtrack you would expect if Studio Ghibli remade Fern Gully. That's the best way I've been able to think about it. It's such a like a haunting children's fantasy soundtrack. It's so kind of beautiful and soaring and somber at the right times and hopeful at the right time. it's something. It's not a million miles away. It kind of reminds me of the Doom Eternal versus Doom argument, where like it's not a million miles away from the soundtrack for the original, but it's the reverse of the Doom thing, where I actually think this stands out a lot more than its original. Now, Mark, I know you're the other big Ori guy here, or at least you were the early adopter on Ori and the Will of the Wisp. So, what did you think of it?
Oh, I mean, like, the opening song is like in introduction is just like that voice, the melody that kind of just is over top, and it's always interesting when you have music that somehow manages to straddle the line between, you know, hopeful but also kind of mournful and somber. It's incredible how it does that, and across the board, you know, it's something that you could go to a theatre and hear like a full kind of orchestral like performance of it, and it would work, you know. I don't remember a lot of the original Ori game or the soundtrack, so I can't do quite the same comparison in terms of like going between the two, but this kind of throughout, it just, every single scene and every single area and every single cutscene has a piece of music that takes that scene and elevates it to the next level, and everything just kind of fits. So yeah, I don't know, because I mean the two soundtracks we've got here are so wildly different in what they're trying to do that it is as subjective at this point in your preferences. So, you know, I guess we talk about some Paradise Killer.
Well, I just wanted to chip in with my thoughts on Ori. And I don't know if you guys agree with this. Like, I think early parts of that soundtrack have that sort of weird. It's like almost like that Celtic traditional vibe crossed with the, ambience that you get in an Enya stuff. You know, that's kind of how it had sounded to me when I was listening to it, and I just think like all the way through the immersion of the music with the shades of color in the game, the sort of palettes of black and purple and everything, it just matches up so incredibly. Like, they use dynamics so well. A lot of soundtracks now are obviously going to be mixed at a level and stay in with the game, but this sort of brings up and comes down, and it has that orchestral thing of peaks and troughs, which I think that always pops me massively on soundtracks. And there's like some great comfort homely moments, like Dave mentioned, like a sort of Studio Ghibli, but then at the same time there's some really good uneasy stuff for, you know, like little darker moments of the game or bosses and stuff that kind of put you a bit more on edge. So it captures and uses every element of like musicality to reflect the emotion of the things that are happening on the screen better than any of the other games, I would say. So yeah.
Barry, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I can already echo everything that was already said. I think it's a very complete package. It does feel like Ghibli was referenced. I also think, yeah, Disney was another thing. I kind of felt like the whole game feels like playing through a wonderfully crafted Disney like fantasy epic. Yeah, like from the opening title screen to the opening scene of the game to the sadder moments of the game to the more like panic-inducing like boss battles. It's all just so finely crafted, and in a game where like the story, it's fairly, you know, it's a template, to be fair. It's not the most amazing story ever, but it's interesting, and it's mostly dialogue free. So it's just kind of the score and the narration have to convey the mood of the moment. I think it just does an excellent job. It's a wonderfully complete package, and I really love it.
So, Paradise Killer. Fuck, I love the soundtrack so much. It's one of those, it works on a number of levels for me. I think it's an incredible companion to the type of game it is. That kind of chill and fun vaporwave kind of soundtrack. I don't think there's a bad song in it. I think also it works as it's been my kind of go-to background music for work this whole year. So it has both the being great with the game and also being great by itself for me, which works great. It's also got, bar none, as Bark alluded to earlier, the best single song in a game this year.
My most played song on Spotify this year.
Oh my god, Paradise Stay Forever fucking slaps.
Yeah, it's incredible.
So
it's
hard.
incredible, yeah.
Both the instrumental version that opens the game and then the version with the lyrics, my preferred version that closes the game.
Here's how good Stay Forever is. If I can find an 8-bit version before next year, it will be our intro sequence for next year.
No argument whatsoever. It'll be the easiest discussion on that we've ever had if we can find it.
Since ARMS, at least, anyway.
Oh my god.
So I was looking at my favourite 10 songs of the year, because I was just going to tweet it out in a thread at some point during the next week or so, and I think Stay Forever is genuinely in there. One of my favourite 10 songs I've heard all year. Like, it's fucking awesome. That whole melody of like Red Skies and When Love Dies, that would just get locked in my head over
how
and
the
over
lyrics
again.
tie to the game as well, like also the song is
perfect.
And
25 forever.
I think that you know, we're talking about Paradise Stay Forever, but that's not to say that the rest of the soundtrack is being carried by this one song. Like, the rest of it is fantastic as well. And I often think about like how replayable a soundtrack is based on how quickly I'm listening to podcasts while playing a game. Like, if I'm turning it down and playing a podcast, or if I'm turning down the music in the settings so I can listen to it. As I discussed earlier in the show, I pretty much completely cleared out that game. If there's anything I didn't find, I don't know about it. And I never got sick of a single moment of it, of any of the songs. It was just brilliant. I love it so much.
That's cool. I was gonna say that sort of breezy 80s pop kind of vibe to it, which I've written down in my notes. I describe as all night long core.
Yeah.
You know the sound of all night long? Just that sound in Captures is like the whole soundtrack you can build around the song all night long and it would fit in perfect.
Yeah.
I'd also describe it as if any of these songs came home, like you're in a taxi on the way home after a night out and then Mellow Magic is on. If any of these songs came on of Mellow Magic, you'd just be tapping your feet away, happy after the knowledge that you've had a good night, or even if you've had a shit night. If Paradise Stay Forever came on in the cab on the way home, it would actually make me feel better about the bad night that I just had, kind of no matter what it was.
I'd be turning the cab around and going back out again. I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So I could listen to it again. I mean, just fucking, wow, this is so good.
It's like as a whole piece, the soundtrack is like trying to put music to the color palette of that game, and it does it so excellently. And it's like it's so jaunty as well that it matches up very well with all the weird and colorful cast of characters in that game.
And the bass line slap, man. Like that, I mentioned that Nintendo synth bass sound, and it has a bit similar here. That bass kind of like percussive slap sound to it. That just it's awesome. Fucking, I can listen to this soundtrack like over and over again and never not have a smile on my face.
Yeah, Barry, we've heard the least from you on this one. What did you think of Paradise Killer?
So I loved it, and I thought it is added, like you said, there's wonderful colour to it. I will say that I didn't love it as thoroughly as in every single track as much as you guys seem to have.
I was going to bring this up, but I'll let you talk about it. But I echo some of those sentiments.
I actually think it's more kind of a couple of tracks are really heavy hitting, and then the others are kind of decent. You know what I mean? I think. I think maybe there's a couple in there that do feel filler, and really it's actually kind of just one or two that really stuck with me. Do you know what I mean?
Honestly, for me, like, Paradise Killer is, and I mentioned ARMS earlier, and it's not by accident. It is like the song, and even I guess even Super Mario Odyssey, because quite honestly, like, when I think about the Super Mario Odyssey soundtrack and being excellent, what I'm actually just thinking of is 1-Up Superstar. When I think of the ARMS soundtrack, what I'm thinking of is just the main theme. When I think of Paradise Killer, I think of Stay Forever. And, it's very much with credit that it is the best song that I've heard this year, and I have had it on infinite repeat. part of why I had Hades as my soundtrack of the year is because just across the board, like, I have no down moments with that soundtrack, where there are a fair number of tracks on the Paradise Killer soundtrack that are fine. But, I mean, the high of that soundtrack being, and this is my other issue as well, the best version of Stay Forever is not in the game, because the game version in the game does not have the lyrics, and the lyrics and the vocal melody add so much to that song.
The lyrics are, is it, if you get the proper
ending, the credits.
Yeah, if you get the proper ending, you get the version with the lyrics in it.
Fine, but that's like 15 to 20 hours in, and you know, I didn't have that in my experience, because I guess I didn't get the proper ending.
Yeah.
Did you think it was Doom Jazz that killed everyone? Is that?
No, Doom Jazz just wanted to fuck everyone. That was his deal.
And he pretty much did. Fair play to him. Right, let's take it to a vote then. Me first, Paradise Killer, hands down. Mark?
I mean, I guess I still can't vote Hades, right?
Well, you can if you want, I guess.
Man, oh man. I mean, honestly, in some ways, I do still just want to vote for Hades, but, you know, that probably doesn't help in this situation. God.
I'm waiting for you to be like Bugsnax.
Can I stick to my convictions and go with Hades just because I have to be true to myself?
Yeah, if you want.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I want to be true to myself, and Hades is my soundtrack of the year, so I can't not pick it.
To thine own self be true. Barry, voting for The Last of Us, yeah?
Bugsnax, no. I am going with Ori.
Okay. Jackathy?
Yeah, this is really difficult. But I'm gonna have to go with Paradise Killer, because
yes,
just
Jack!
Even talking about it brings a smile to my face, and I feel dirty because Ori is just unbelievable. Like, everybody's gone to the Rapture one this in 2015.
Yeah, man.
Like, I think Ori's actually maybe better than that.
Oh, and blasphemy.
Like, no, but that's how good I think that is. Like, it's incredible. And I love that.
I can't complain with my most played song of the year being on the soundtrack of the year.
Honestly, yeah.
I really didn't. I really thought, I don't know why, but I thought Spiritfairer might have a chance here.
I think if I spent more time with Spiritfairer, maybe, but I didn't spend enough time with it.
I do think it boils down to that thing of I just feel like Ori did what Spiritfairer did better.
I felt like Spiritfairer was more concise than Ori though, and like that, it had that killer song, that ending song, which I just thought was so beautiful. But hey.
I think for me, it's just
a bit
Ori.
Late in the day for the Spiritfairer.
Ori is a Mark Robinson TM game, so
yeah.
I think that was always going to help me.
Yeah, and I'm delighted that the Dave Ryan TM game has won here. Best music, Paradise Killer.
By the way, if Dave Ryan was a TM, what would he be? Grass, fighting, fire, water?
I mean, seeing as Gengar is my favorite Pokemon.
You're going to go some sort of like ghost move.
I want to be in Gengar's gang.
Yeah, Dave Ryan TM is actually Shadow Ball.
Dream Eater or something.
Yeah, nice.
Right, okay, so the People's Choice. It was a really close one here between a few of them. But the winner, with 21.4% of the poll.
Wow, so that is split.
That's really split. Was Paradise Killer.
Oh, yes. Come on, the people.
The people don't know what they're talking about. The people want catchy meme songs instead of beautiful orchestral scores that complete an experience. These people, get them the hell out of here. Except for that time in the last round when they voted Last of Us. That was good.
Tied for second and third on 17.9% were Ori and Hades.
Wow!
Did we get this category right?
Order.
Oh my God.
That is pretty good. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Close behind was Doom Eternal.
Yeah.
Weirdly, on 14.3. Then Last of Us, then Paper Mario, and then
Garrett Kidney represent.
pretty much evenly spread out over the last few contenders.
Okay.
So that was really good. I like that it's probably the first time we've conclusively nailed the first, second, and third that everybody else did.
And it will be the last.
It will be the last.